Thank you. Fantastic. I hope he never stops.
It was special.
That was really, I've seen stuff like that on television before, and to be part of it was really special.
It's cool, right?
It's beyond cool.
Yeah. Thank you for being back here.
It was supposed to be Meghan Markle's triumphant return, a shiny new podcast, a glitzy press rollout, and the full force of celebrity PR behind it. Confessions of a Female Founder was pitched as empowering, intimate, and bold, a behind-the-scenes look at the struggles of women in power. But all it took was 15 seconds and a smirk from Tom Cruise to send it spiraling.
To prove something, to prove that you're enough, you have to prove that you're pretty enough, you have to prove that you're smart enough, you prove that you're a good wife or a good friend, and I was like, I am just so done with the prove it game.
The moment unfolded on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Meghan had just launched the podcast, and Hollywood's elite were expected to rally behind her. Then Tom walked in. With that signature Cruise grin, he looked Colbert dead in the eye and said, "I tried listening to Confessions of a Female Founder, but I had to pull the eject lever faster than in Top Gun." Boom! The crowd exploded. Colbert nearly lost it. And just like that, the air shifted. This wasn't a casual jab. It was a laser-guided strike, wrapped in humor. Tom didn't just throw shade, he pantomimed, yanking the eject cord like he was bailing out of a burning fighter jet.
Thank you all very much.
Meghan, reportedly backstage, was crushed, clutching her green juice with white knuckles, watching the empire she'd so carefully polished get publicly roasted. The internet lit up within minutes. Clip after clip, meme after meme, the joke went viral. And just like that, Meghan's podcast wasn't a hit. It was the punchline. But the backlash was just beginning. The viral clip of Tom Cruise detonating Meghan's podcast didn't just stay within late-night circles. It bled into every corner of the internet. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram.
It's just so great. This is why it's so nice to not have makeup.
Or was a move because you weren't getting enough support from the firm?
Every platform was flooded with reactions. The joke spread faster than a press release. And Meghan wasn't the only one feeling the heat. Colbert doubled down with a sly follow-up quip about adversity being tough, especially from a Montecito mansion. The burn wasn't just casual, it was calculated. And suddenly, late-night TV turned into ground zero for one of the most unexpected takedowns of Meghan's carefully managed public image. Instead of applause for her new venture, she got roasts. People began revisiting the podcast not to engage, but to critique. Influencers posted breakdowns, commentators dissected every word, and the overall vibe? It wasn't just a flop, it was an overproduced, underwhelming, painfully self-important disaster. Critics called it a cringe fest. Viewers said it sounded like a guided meditation mixed with a branding pitch. Meghan's hopes of leading a powerful narrative were now being drowned in sarcasm and side eyes. And the memes? Oh, the memes. One showed Meghan wrapped in a cashmere blanket, sipping matcha, with the caption, "Struggling, but make it aesthetic."
A show where I chat with female entrepreneurs and friends about the sleepless nights, the lessons learned, and the laser focus.
Meghan Markle's latest podcast launch has been charmingly described as stomach-turning after she received scathing criticism over her narcissistic Netflix series. Reviews for Confessions of a Female Founder are in, and if Meghan Googles herself as much as we know she does, she will not be happy with them.
Another dubbed her CEO of Vibes. The message was clear. This wasn't real empowerment. It was image management in a silk robe. And what happened next would rattle the entire industry. The deeper people dug into Confessions of a Female Founder, the clearer it became. This wasn't a raw, revolutionary deep dive into womanhood. It was a curated monologue, dressed in expensive lighting and wrapped in Pinterest-worthy quotes. Critics didn't just dislike it, they dismantled it. One review called it emotionally manipulative and narratively hollow. Another said it was like a beautifully wrapped gift box filled with packing peanuts. The kind of podcast that looks empowering from a distance, but once you hit play, there's nothing to hold on to. Even NPR, normally careful in their critiques, went for the jugular, saying Meghan's performance felt like cosplay, not leadership. The intention might have been noble, to lift up female entrepreneurs and share untold stories. But the execution? It was all cashmere soundbites, TED Talk energy, and buzzwords strung together with the soft elegance of someone who's never had to pitch to a boardroom, let alone build anything from the ground up. Every episode dripped with phrases like, "Find your inner voice," "Elevate your feminine power," and "Rise above the noise." But the only thing rising was the audience's skepticism. Listeners weren't inspired. They were exhausted. It wasn't authentic. It was aspirational branding disguised as vulnerability. And worse, it felt like it was talking at people, not to them. The podcast became a symbol of everything critics feared: style over substance, optics over truth. A $14 million echo chamber where real talk was replaced by scripted self-reflection. And the numbers proved it. This wasn't just a bad review cycle, it was a total disconnect. At first glance, Meghan's podcast looked like a win top 10 on Spotify, media buzz, glossy PR spreads. But that spike was short-lived. Outside of the US and Canada, crickets. Most listeners didn't stick around past the first episode. The retention rates told a brutal story.
Meghan Markle has finally revealed why she and Prince Harry call each other M and H. What could it be? A mystery for the ages.
People tuned in out of curiosity and tuned out just as fast. What was marketed as groundbreaking turned out to be a slow-moving, overly polished monologue filled with rehearsed vulnerability and empty affirmations. Let's talk tone. Meghan spoke in the kind of soft, breathy voice you'd expect from a yoga instructor reading a guided meditation. The quivering, emotional moments felt perfectly timed. Too perfect, like they'd been workshopped in a studio with a lighting technician and a publicist on standby. Audiences didn't feel moved. They felt manipulated. Vulnerability, when genuine, connects. But when it feels staged, it backfires. And here, it backfired loudly. It was the kind of performance that might have worked 5 years ago, but not now. Not in a media landscape where people crave authenticity. Meghan's message, finding your voice, owning your truth, was drowned out by the sheer weight of her performance. She wasn't sharing her soul. She was sharing a strategy. It wasn't empowerment, it was PR. A well-packaged attempt to turn pain into personal branding. And people noticed. Quickly, because when the words say, "I'm just like you," but the setting says, "I live on a private estate sipping $22 smoothies," that disconnect doesn't spark empathy. It sparks mockery. And just when Meghan needed backup, Hollywood went quiet. For someone who once had Hollywood in her corner, the silence was deafening. Meghan's inner circle, once star-studded and fiercely loyal, suddenly vanished from view. Oprah, who gave Meghan and Harry the interview of the decade? Quiet. Tyler Perry, who literally offered them a mansion during their post-royal exile? MIA. Beyoncé's team politely declined any future collabs. And perhaps the most telling of all, Ellen unfollowed her on Instagram. Yes, Ellen, the be kind queen. That's Hollywood code for, we're done here. The silence wasn't just passive, it was strategic. The media outlets that once celebrated Meghan as a symbol of modern feminism began tiptoeing away. Bustle quiet. The cut non-committal. Teen Vogue suddenly found more interest in Gen Z climate activists than in duchesses with podcast deals. The glowing press that once orbited Meghan dimmed into a cautious, diplomatic distance. No glowing profiles, no supportive reposts, just the sound of high-profile doors gently clicking shut. Then came the kill shot. NPR, the same outlet that once gave her airtime, now dropped a headline dripping with subtle venom. "If Meghan is a female founder, then I'm a female astronaut." Oof. That wasn't shade. That was a literary uppercut. The kind of quote that becomes a meme, a punchline, a headline, all in one. And it spread like wildfire. Meghan wasn't just losing the public. She was losing the industry. The people who once amplified her voice were now ignoring her calls. The spotlight she once owned was flickering, and her team could feel it. So they did what any modern brand in crisis does. They spun harder. Behind the scenes, it was full-blown damage control. Meghan's team reportedly launched into crisis comms mode the moment Tom Cruise's joke hit the internet. Phones rang. Emails flew. Carefully worded statements were pushed to every friendly outlet they could still count on. The messaging? That Confessions of a Female Founder was bold, misunderstood, and trailblazing in its vulnerability. But the spin didn't stick. Audiences weren't buying it. And worse, media insiders could smell the desperation. One PR insider described it as classic overcorrection. Instead of leaning into the criticism or reflecting publicly, the team doubled down on the original branding. They flooded press with quotes that read like marketing copy, Meghan's redefining modern storytelling, a new era of female-led media, powerful, poetic, and purposeful. But the reality? People had already decided. And those headlines felt more like slogans than sincerity. No one was talking about the podcast's message anymore, just how hard they were trying to salvage it. It was the digital equivalent of rearranging furniture on a sinking ship. The more they pushed, the more people pushed back. And in that moment, something shifted. The public no longer saw Meghan as misunderstood. They saw someone frantically clinging to a narrative that no longer resonated. And Tom Cruise's joke? It wasn't just funny anymore. Mod had become a catalyst, a moment that gave people permission to say what they'd been thinking all along. The brand was hollow, the storytelling was forced, and the authenticity was gone. And then, the foundation started to crack. Not just the podcast, but the whole polished media empire. Meghan's media empire once seemed unstoppable. Netflix deals, Spotify exclusives, glossy magazine features, and branded empowerment on tap. But when the content finally landed, it didn't feel like a movement. It felt like a marketing campaign. What was pitched as an inspiring look at modern womanhood turned out to be a curated Pinterest board of buzzwords: authenticity, impact, resilience, all sprinkled like glitter over perfectly staged podcast episodes with zero real grit underneath. Industry analysts didn't hold back. One flatly stated, "It sounds like it was produced in a vacuum." Translation? It wasn't made for connection, it was made for clout. And audiences noticed. The podcast wasn't starting conversations, it was chasing applause. The difference was obvious. Real creators build communities. Meghan built an echo chamber where no one outside her team was allowed to speak. And it wasn't just the podcast. Every public appearance, every quote, every carefully crafted Instagram-worthy moment began to feel like a set piece. Vision boards replaced vision. And when you claim to be breaking barriers but sound like you're reading from a brand deck, people tune out fast. There were no raw interviews, no uncomfortable truths, no sense of journey, just ambient piano music and affirmations bathed in soft lighting. That's the danger of building an empire on optics. You can fool the press for a while. You can even land a few headlines. But eventually, the audience catches up. And when they do, the questions come fast. Who is this really for? What's actually being said? Is there any substance under all this style? Because once people start peeling back the layers, you'd better have something real at the core. This was never supposed to be how Meghan Markle's story unfolded. After the royal exit, she had the world's attention, a wave of public sympathy, and a rare shot to build something truly transformative. She could have become a powerful voice for modern womanhood, a symbol of resilience, independence, and authenticity. But somewhere between the headlines and the high-end matcha, the message got lost. And now, after one 15-second joke from Tom Cruise, the illusion cracked wide open. It wasn't a scandal or a leaked email that shook her brand. It was a single punchline that cut through the polish and exposed the emptiness beneath. Suddenly, all those million-dollar deals weren't signs of success. They were reminders of how disconnected the brand had become from its original purpose. Netflix, once her biggest ally, is reportedly reevaluating its partnership. Executives aren't clapping anymore. They're squinting at contracts, running numbers, and asking the one question every celebrity dreads: is this still worth it? Spotify already answered. After one season, they pulled the plug. Quietly, but definitively. Sources say the exit was messy. Executives allegedly called the project a grift. Harsh? Maybe. But it reflects the growing feeling. The media machine Meghan built isn't connecting. It's exhausting. And worse, it's starting to feel like it was never meant to connect. Just to be admired. Like a showroom no one's allowed to touch. So what's next? Another rebrand? A docuseries? A quote in cursive font posted to Instagram about healing and light? Maybe, but if Meghan really wants to rebuild, it can't be with lighting filters and PR soundbites. It has to start with honesty. Real, uncomfortable, human honesty. Because audiences will forgive a lot. Mistakes, missteps, even failure. What they won't forgive is fakeness. And thanks to Tom Cruise, the veil has been lifted. The real question now isn't whether Meghan's empire can be saved. It's whether there's anything real left to save at all.